Hello, everyone. Welcome to Biology, Human in Biological World. This is chapter 1. And as I said it in the introduction to the class, the very first day, I tried to keep each chapter under half an hour. So you guys can go ahead and do other things in life you have. And then if you know the material in the chapter, then you should be in a pretty good hand. You should do well in the quizzes and exams or what they have. All right, then, I talked about these things the very first day, the introduction. Let's go ahead and focus on chapter 1 and try to finish it under half an hour or so. Okay, so pretty much chapter 1 it covers everything we talk about for the rest of the semester. It goes over everything briefly, a little bit of everything and anything that you guys need to know for the rest of the semester. The learning outcomes, I'm not going to go over these slides, but what I would like you to do is, let's see if I can move this out of the way. Okay, but they're treat them as an essay question. If you know the answers to these questions, then you should be pretty in a good shape for this chapter. Okay, levels of biological organization. The very first day in a class, I bring a piece of paper like this, and I ask, the student to cut them off in half, okay? Just like I'm doing it in half. And then cut this half, cut it in half, okay? So if I keep cutting and cutting, well, the students in the class used to cut it and cut it in half and cut it in half and cut it in half. And eventually, let's say you come up with a small piece that it depends from semester to semester, from class to class, that some students were desperate, they tried to cut this half and in half and in half. They didn't give up. Some students did not give up. So it was a nice demonstration of, if I cut this in half, you guys, imagine right now you can see it. If I, somebody else, another student can cut this in half and cut that in half and cut this in half and so on and so forth, eventually you get to the point that you give up. So when a person gives up, there is a technology available to cut that piece in half, cut that piece in half, cut that piece in half. And eventually, when you cut it in half with the help of technology, you end up getting into an atom, okay? So everything is made up of atoms. A piece of paper, a glass of water, and guess what? Me. Are made up of atoms. And when atoms get together, and I will talk about that in next chapter, what are the atoms and everything else. This is just an overview of the whole entire textbook of this chapter. So when the atoms get together, they form molecules, like molecule of water. Water is, as you know, water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. Only those two atoms make up the molecule of water. And the molecules get together and they make up cells. And cells are smallest structural and functional unit of an organism based on your textbook. So, during semesters, a lot of times I refer to as a unit. Unit of living organism is cell. Unit of muscle cell, for example, later on, unit in the muscle cell is sarcomere. Okay, so we refer to these units, the term unit. I hope you're familiar with that. The unit of money in the United States is dollar, okay? It's not cents, it's a dollar. It's not euro, it's dollar. So you know what I'm talking about when I talk about unit. So some organisms right here, some organisms are single cells, and some, like human, are multicellular organisms. Single cell organisms, some of them you dealt with in high school or your other classes, like amoeba. You call your classmates, hey, amoeba, not nice, but You do that. And then bacteria, they're single cell organisms. Even though they do not have nucleus, we consider them as a single cell organisms. And human, you and I, are made up of many cells. And then we'll talk about the human for the rest of semester. And then when cells, similar cells get together, they form a tissue. And we'll talk about those again, what are tissues, and tissues have specific functions. We only have 4 different type of tissues, and then we'll talk about those later on. Here is a level of biological organization. Here are the atoms. Atoms make up molecules. Molecules then make up cells, organelles, and then inside of the cells are organelles. We'll talk about organelles a little bit later on. And here are the cells, and then the tissues. I'm sorry, as I said, there are 4 different types of tissues. The tissues, they make up organs, and then organs have a specific function. And the organs, combination of 2 or 3 organs, they make up a system right here. And then an individual person, a system, it's an organism. An organism, you have a species, they can breed among themselves and have offsprings. And then you have a population of same species. They can breed among themselves and they can have offsprings. Community is the interaction of this species with the environment, and ecosystem is the interaction of the community with physical environment. I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. Introducing population in a particular areas, that's a community, and then ecosystem, it's a physical environment, and then biosphere is the Mother Earth. It's called the biosphere. Make sure you're familiar with all of these levels of organization. You know the definition of each one of them. You understand the definition of each one of them. And of course, biosphere is the interaction of all of the ecosystems on Mother Earth. Right here is called the biosphere. Okay. The levels of biological organisms, I talked about it: organ system, organism, species, population, community. So I'm not going to go over that. Again, as I said, whatever PowerPoints we have for the rest of semester, you know, if already explained on a picture or diagram, something, then I'm not going to go ahead and read it. I'll let you guys read it. Okay, levels of continuing the ecosystem and biosphere, all of the Earth's ecosystems combined together. Energy, that's the next thing that we need to talk about. The capacity to do work is energy. Different textbook, different area of science have different definition of energy, but they all mean the same thing. Okay. If you open up a physics textbook, they might give you a different definition of energy. They might say, well, when matter turns to this, it's called energy. But based on your textbook, it is saying the capacity to do work is called energy. So, and then we'll learn for the rest of the semester what those words are and where energy is needed for those works, like inside of your body. The metabolism is occurring, we need energy for that. Human acquires materials and energy by eating. Of course, we do need that. Food provides nutrients which are used for building blocks and energy. That's the next thing I want to talk about. Okay, metabolism is all of the chemical reactions that occur within a cell. So a metabolism, the way I like the definition of metabolism is right here. Metabolism is catabolism and anabolism. Okay, so combination of catabolism and anabolism, these two together means metabolism. So what is catabolism? Catabolism, it means when you are when your body, when your cells are breaking down molecules. That's called catabolism. The molecules you eat from animals and plants, they are not same molecules as your body. So your body has to break them down and then put them together, anabolism, put them together the way your cell, the molecules inside of your body are designed. For example, when you eat beans or meat, that's not the same protein that is inside of your cells. So they have to first be when you eat them, after you eat them, first they have to be broken down, and then inside of your cells, with the help of enzymes and everything else, which we will talk about it, they are being put together the way your body can handle. So that's pretty much what catabolism and anabolism means. Combination of both of those, it means metabolism. The ultimate source of energy for life on Earth is sun. Of course, everything comes from sun. If there was no sun, then we would not have photosynthesis. Based on photosynthesis, other organisms eat product of photosynthesis. They eat plants, and then we eat other organisms, or we eat plants. So the sun is the ultimate source of energy on Mother Earth. It's not protein, it's not carbohydrates, which you're familiar with, or it's not photosynthesis. Here's a photosynthesis used by plants, algae, and some bacteria, and it harvests energy from the sun and converts it to chemical energy, produces sugar, which are serves. We will not talk about photosynthesis in this class as much, but as long as you know, plants turn sunlight with help of water and the minerals from ground into sugar, into protein, into fat. Everything that we eat, it comes from plants, and of course, as I said, animal products as well. Very important that you know the definition of homeostasis is a constant internal environment in our body. For example, when you eat when you get up in the morning, your sugar level in your body is like this, low. It has to be on a standard base. After you eat a meal, your sugar level goes up, and then by the time you come down by lunchtime, your sugar level goes back down, and then you eat lunch, it goes back up. It goes down and up throughout the day, 3 times, whatever, 4 times, 5 times you eat. And the sugar level, if it goes higher than a certain level, right up here, if the sugar level goes higher than that, then you're diabetic. If it goes lower than this, you are hypoglycemic, okay? So the sugar level has to be in a constant internal environment. That's what your sugar level, it has to be calcium level, you're like that. Your body temperature is like that. When on a cold day, your body temperature is a little bit lower, and on a hot day, your body temperature is a little bit higher. So, but your body temperature, if it goes way up here, then you have fever. If your body temperature goes way down here, then you're hypothermic. So the internal environment of our body has to be constant. If it is not constant, Houston, we got a problem. Have you guys seen the movie Apollo? I refer to this a lot during semester. Go ahead and watch the movie Apollo 13. And then Tom Hanks calls from Apollo 13, he calls Houston. They say, Houston, we got a problem. So anyhow, that's what the homeostasis means. Most organ systems strives to maintain homeostasis, constant internal mechanism. That is, body temperature is maintained within a narrow range of values. And I talked about that. Right now it's COVID-19. Anywhere you go, most places I go, they check my temperature first, and then they let you in. So you know the rest of the story. Homeostasis would be impossible to maintain without the ability to respond to stimulus. Yes, of course, there is stimuli. The external stimuli, something that provoke the cells of the body. Then we'll talk about that when we get to nervous system. What is a stimulus? What is a stimuli? then hopefully that makes sense a little bit more. Internal stimulus, adjustment to blood pressure, response values. I think I talked about most of these things. Then also living organisms reproduce. They pass the genetic information to the next generation. And of course, we go through sexual reproduction. That is meiosis. We'll talk about that. So we are a combination of two different organisms. Okay, so half of me is from my father, and half of me is from my mother, and half of my mother was from her father, and half of it from her mother. So I'm a combination of a whole bunch of different genes, as you can imagine. When organisms produce, they pass on their genetic information to the next generation. Growth, increase in size. It's different than reproduction. Well, growth is a type of reproduction as well, increase in size and in numbers of the cells. Development is all changes that occur from fertilization until death. That is called development. And then we'll, again, there are chapters, we'll talk about that. Includes changes during childbirth, adolescence, and adulthood. Also repairs after injuries. Those are some of the development structures we talk about. Okay, your blueprint of all living organisms, all bacteria, all the way from bacteria to human, amoeba, we talked about it. It's based on DNA. So the definition of the DNA is abbreviation, NFL is abbreviation, NBA is abbreviation, DNA is abbreviation of the oxyribonucleic acid. So that something you should know. D right here, N and A is right. That's what the DNA is. The genetic information of all cells, all life, okay, contains hereditary information that directs the structure and function of all cells and contains genes. So if you have, for example, let's go over this quickly right now. If you have a chromosome like this, a piece of that chromosome right here is a gene. A piece of that chromosome right here is a gene. That is a gene. And that gene is responsible, for example, for your hair color. That gene is responsible for the color of your teeth. That gene is responsible for your skin color. So there are genes, there are what, there are 30,000, I should know that number, I'm forgetting now. There are lots of things I forget, you guys, so you have to bear with me. So when they did analyze human chromosome, human genome, I should say that, and then they found out that was in 1998, 99, something like that, before the turn of the century. It was like 30,000. You can Google it. I should wrote it down here. When we get to the chapter on inheritance and genetics, I'm sure it will come up. So there are about that many genes in our blueprint. So short segments that specify traits. Trait is, as I said, is the color of your eye, color of your skin, color of your hair, anyhow, your height sometimes, it depends what the trait is. Mutation, again, we'll talk about this, is variation in gene, things that happen, the sequence of DNA changes a little bit. That is called mutation. Can be beneficial and make an organism better suited for its environment, or it can be basis for evolution, evolution, how a population change over time. My definition of evolution, you guys, is change over time. 3 words. Okay, of course, you can elaborate on it and talk about it, how a population changes. That's what Darwin came and talked about it. He said, when the population changes, and that is evolution. Prior to him, Lamarck was talking about it is individuals, and Darwin said, no, it's a population. But quickly, short, dirty definition of evolution is change over time. Okay, that's the definition of evolution. Natural selection, the process by which evolution occurs. We'll not talk about it much in this class, maybe, but anyhow, I think we have a chapter on evolution. Great, so I will talk about it. And when a new variation occurs that allows organisms to capture more resources, those individuals have more offsprings. Yes, adaptation. Over time, population has more individuals with disadvantaged variation, advantageous variations. That's again another big chapter in evolution that those of you studying it. Okay, this goes back again to the your learning outcome. Make sure you know the answer to these questions. That way you master the chapter, and then you can, again, if you know the answer to these questions, you will do much better in the exam or quizzes. Okay, here again, I'm not going to go over them. I wish you would know the answer to these questions. Okay, then in order to make all of these living organisms, we have to classify them. It's just like ask you, where do you live? I live in Washington. Well, we're Washington, state of Washington, Washington, D.C. We have many cities in the United States called Washington. We have many streets. It's called Washington. So in order to make a sense out of all of living organisms, they've broken down to your textbook. Again, it's different textbook. They like to classify things a little bit different. It's called, they've broken out to 3 domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. The bacteria and archaea contains prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are cells that they do not have nucleus. Okay, eukaryotes, they are the cells that they do have nucleus, like our cells. Of course, in our gut and our skin, we have bacteria, but the cells, our own cells that they are in your heart, in your muscles, in your brain, they all have nucleus. Here is the hierarchy they're talking about. Right here is the bacteria, and then here are archaea. Archaea, they are, it means ancient. There are bacteria that they are similar to the ancient bacteria. And then all living organisms based on evolution came from these type of cells. And then those are the 2 domains. The 3rd domain is our eukarya. Eukarya are protista, like amoeba, we talked about it, plants, plantae, and then fungi, like a mushroom you eat, athlete food, you have the yeast infection we get in our genitals. And then animals, earthworm, human. So these are all the subdomain of eukarya. It depends what textbook you talk to, you see, I like to call them kingdom. Kingdom protista, kingdom plantae, kingdom fungi, and kingdom animalia. But so within this eukarya, which all of these, they have nucleus. All of these organisms, they have nucleus. It's eukarya. So again, I mentioned this. Let's move on, and these are some figures for you guys to enjoy and look at and learn. I have nothing else. Most organisms in kingdom Animalia are invertebrates. It means they do not have vertebral column in the back. Your vertebrae, I have a chart in zoology. I show you like a big pie that how many organisms on planet Earth, they do not have vertebrae. Most of organisms do not. We are the minority, if you would. That is the earthworm, insects, mollusks. So you're talking about snails, clams, octopus. And the vertebrate animals, which we are vertebrates, have a nerve cord protected by vertebral column, which spinal cord runs through your vertebral. This is a spinal cord runs through vertebral column. These are your vertebrates, okay? And there's a cartilage between them, which we'll talk about now. And then that is fish, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. Vertebrates with hair or fur, they are mammary glands, which us, and that is human, raccoons, and seals. Humans are most closely related to apes, but are distinguished from apes by highly developed brain, completely upright stance, and creative language skills, ability to use a wide variety of tools. Humans and apes have a common ancestor. Okay, culture, activities, and items passed down from one generation to the next, beliefs, values, skills, and so on and so forth. The biosphere spans the surface of the earth into atmosphere and into the soil area as well. So again, this is another set of things. And then science, a way of knowing about the natural world. Science should be objective, factual, not subjective, involve judgments, which you drive those judgments based on your observations. So anyhow, a scientific process uses scientific methods and standards. You know, the rest of this chapter, you guys, I would like to read it on your own. I'm not going to get into this scientific method. It is very important. There are questions in your quizzes and exams from this portion of chapter, data graph, but there is one thing very, very important, especially nowadays with coronavirus. I would like you to know that is this part. So in every scientific experiment you run, you must have a control. So here they are. They want to come up with a new drug for for coronavirus. There is a group that they gotta give them a control pill. So here's a population they pick, and they break them down to 3 if there are 2 medications for coronavirus or 2 vaccine. But one group gets something similar to the vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's just nothing. It's sugar pill, okay? Or just a saline water. If a vaccine is injectable, it's just saline water. And then the other one are the real true vaccine. If there are 2 variety of vaccine, if there is one. So in biology, you will learn throughout the semester, some of the experiments we run, you will learn that we have to have control for every experiment we run. Again, the rest of chapters, you know, make sure you read them and enjoy them. And that's all I have to say. All right. You know, at the end of the lecture, I used to ask, is there any question? But we will have some sessions. If you guys have any question, you let me know. All right.